Yo, how's it going everyone? This is Co-Host Legend Coda speaking, bringing you another 5-minute review more or less of a game called Floppy Knights. Meet the Floppy Knights, tangible projections summoned from floppy disks, tactics fused with cards, game mechanics as Phoebe and Carlton, a brilliant young adventurer and her robot-armed besties, square off in a turn-based battle. Select your knight, hone your deck, and execute your strategy for victory. Published by Rose City Games, WIIP, developed by Rose City Games, released May 23rd, 2022. As of the making of this video, you can actually play this game over on Xbox Game Pass, so if you are watching this early, make sure to check it out and see if it's still there so you can play it. But more or less, this game is a tactics game. Basically, you play as what I would assume a girl. I don't really know what she identifies as. She is an inventor, makes one of her inventions is her hand is basically a talking little robot that helps her summon these little not necessarily enemies, but your teammates. And basically the teammates are just called Floppy Knights because they are created via floppy disks, I guess. And it's actually pretty neat. It's got several worlds that you can mess around with. Each world has 4 levels. And the cool part is, if you feel like the game is a little bit too easy for whatever reason, they actually have another world that is basically challenges. The only thing that I did not like about the challenges was it's the exact same levels that you did in the worlds, but with a challenge twist to it. So it's either basically your deck is picked for you and you have to either stall the game to win via rounds, or a puzzle, like you need to figure out how to kill an enemy or how to reach a flag in one turn, or just in general defeat every single enemy via, again, whatever deck you are given, versus the worlds where you can choose what kind of cards you want and what kind of deck you want, because there are other decks that you can use in the game, but obviously you start out with a set deck and you move from there. And like any other tactics game, it's basically your team's turn and then the enemy's turn, and it's actually pretty neat. I did run into a couple glitches that basically rendered the round either as a loss or you just simply couldn't move. Like there was one time where I just couldn't move from the position that I was in, and it's like, what in the world is going on? But I can tell you that difficulty does ramp up the further you get into the worlds. Each level also has its own mini challenge. So for instance, basically the basis of moving on to the next level would be something like just beat the level, whatever condition that they're asking. Again, like last for 12 rounds, defeat every single enemy, or you know, whatnot. And then the other mini challenge would be make sure you don't lose any teammates, or make sure that you defeat every single enemy before like 10 rounds, for example. And the game's actually, again, pretty neat. The music's pretty neat. The graphics are cool. I mean, obviously, as you can tell, the graphics are a little bit silly, but it's not bad. And the game does actually get pretty difficult, so don't let the graphics fool you. It is a rather silly looking game, but by no means is it going to be easy, unless of course you have a lot of experience with it. But you know, kind of like with any other game, if you have experience with the game, you're just going to be able to move on regardless of its so-called difficulty. Yeah, I mean, the game's awesome. I would definitely suggest to check it out if you like either deck builders or tactic type of style games. The difficulty is not that bad, especially when it comes to just beating each level and or trying to complete some of the extra challenges. Sometimes they just come natural. But I will say that in the later levels, in the later worlds, the game does get rather difficult, so be prepared for that. And there isn't really much to complain about. My biggest gripe of the game is basically whenever you reach a level that has a spawner, those spawners continuously spawn enemies. For example, if the spawner has a 1, then after one round, so when one round is done, it'll go to 0 and then it'll spawn an enemy on the enemy's turn, so basically round 2. So whenever you see a spawner, those spawners continuously spawn enemies regardless of what's happening. There is something that you can do that you can stop the spawner from spawning. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it, but if you happen to see it in the preview, then there you go. But in general, I just wasn't the biggest fan of spawners. I felt like it was a little bit unfair of the game to just continuously spawn no matter what, instead of like slightly increasing the amount of time that you would need to wait for the enemy to gain another enemy. Because again, if you just kind of wait it out, you'll just have an entire field full of enemies versus you need to summon your team, be able to move your team, and attack with your team all within 5 turns, 5 energy spents that you use in order to summon your enemy, but summon your teammate. But the enemy can just continuously summon no matter what happens, and that kind of ticked me off. But again, if you have more patience than I do, I guess you can say, that wouldn't be a problem. Or if you like puzzle solving, because obviously sometimes some of the levels are just puzzle-like, you need to figure out what it is you need to do in order to win. That could be another good thing. But yeah, I mean, overall, I would definitely give this a 7.5 out of 10. Not a bad game. Pretty cool. I did run into glitches, but I mean, what kind of game doesn't have glitches? And there you go. I don't have anything else to say. Hopefully this review helped you in some way, even if it is a little bit scattered. And hope to see you in the next one. Take care.